Hello, animal lovers, and thank you again for joining us on another episode of Furthest from the Wild. I am your host, Alex Tello. Today, I have a very special co-host, my own brother, Sam Tello, and we are on location on Melrose Avenue at Crumbs Whiskers with the founder and CEO, Kanchan. Enjoy the show, and don't forget to subscribe. Tell me a little bit more about how you got to open up a place like this here on Melrose. A little bit background about yourself and how you came about this brilliant idea to get this up here in LA.
Thanks. So I've been an animal lover my whole life. Literally went vegetarian at 5 years old. Just kind of always had, my first pet was a peacock. I grew up in India, so, and I've just always connected with animals. And since I was really little, I wanted to do something to help animals. And I think you get, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I just growing up, that wasn't really an avenue that my parents supported. It wasn't like, oh yeah, go into philanthropy and go help animals.
Sure.
And so it was a dream that was kind of lost and forgotten. I still loved animals, and there's a lot of stories of me saving very random animals and etc. But volunteered in animal shelters through my teens, and kind of saw firsthand euthanasia happening in shelters. Animals that I would be with and connect with every day. Mm-hmm. Suddenly one day I come in and they're not there anymore. And when I ask, it's they were here for 8 months, and wow, we have to create space for new animals, right, to save them, because that's just a side note, when we think kill shelters versus no kill shelters, sure, we think no kill is better, but no kill, they refuse to take in animals, right? Right. No kill can say, I have 10 cages, all 10 are filled, we're not going to help you. Right. Whereas kill shelters, most of them take in everyone that's brought at their door, or most of them, and then the ones that have stayed the longest, they kind of unfortunately write off to be able to bring in new animals. So anyway, at 17, when one of the cats that I used to spend all my time with was euthanized, I remember, I still remember this moment in time. I was outside the shelter, I was crying. This police officer was sitting next to me on the sidewalk, and just in silence. And that was just so sweet. And I remember thinking that, I wanted to do something that saved animals from euthanasia.
Right.
But I didn't really know how, and I didn't really have any cool ideas around it. And then I went into corporate, studied business, went into corporate, hated my life, hated my job, And 2 years in, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was I need to get out of corporate.
Sure.
And travel had always been my escape. Travel had always been, if I felt really lost in life, or if I felt depressed or whatever, travel was what would get me out of it.
Right.
And so I decided to go to Thailand and volunteer at an elephant sanctuary, mm-hmm, which was started by one of my heroes. Her name is Lek. And when I was at the elephant sanctuary, I thought the model was really cool because we paid, I paid to volunteer, right? And we paid to go there and see these orphaned elephants.
Sure.
And that money was used to take care of them. Now, of course, they're a nonprofit and they have a lot of donors as well.
Right.
But when I was there, I was it'd be so cool if this was applied to a shelter model. Mm. But then I was Kanchan, you're so stupid. Who would pay money? Because with shelters, right? The reason they're in cages is because budgets,
sure,
resources, mm-hmm, they don't have the kind of space to create these free roaming spaces. Right. So I was kind of just who'd pay to see dogs or cats? I'm so dumb. Well, just coincidentally on that same trip, these two guys who I just met them in a hostel.
Yeah.
They saw me feeding like every stray dog and cat inside for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
And they picked up that I loved animals.
Right.
And on my 24th birthday, which was my last day in Thailand, they surprised me by taking me to a cat cafe. And it was like the moment, you know, when like you're searching for answers or you're thinking about something and you've
Yeah.
been thinking about something for years and like there's never an answer
Yeah.
and it's just depressing. And then like one day the answer just shows up and
Right.
you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God. So like that was kind of like, people always are surprised by how quickly it happened, but it was because it was something that I'd been searching for for a very long time.
Sure.
But I remember walking into that cat cafe was like walking inside the answer to the question that I'd been asking,
Right.
you know? And I turned to them and I was like, you know, I'm going back, I'm quitting my job, and I'm starting a cat cafe. And one of them was German, the other one of them was English. And they were like, he was like, they both were like, yeah, I'm going to do this in Germany and I'm going to do this in England.
Yeah.
And when I came back and I actually did it, they were like, you're crazy, you meant it. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I meant it.
Right.
Where are your cat cafes in Germany and England? So that's how I started this. And the first location was in DC.
Okay.
Which is where I was raised in India, but when I moved to the U.S., I moved to Maryland, so
Okay.
that was home. And the second location I decided to do in LA for two reasons. Number one, I was kind of I really wanted to like create a cat cafe that became like a pop culture cat cafe,
Sure.
and I was like, if I want to do that, I need to be in LA.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the second reason was there's this cool thing called Google Trends where you can search like search volumes of things. So I looked at the search volume of Cat Cafe and I mapped out all the cities in the US, which basically to see like how many people in that place, in that city are looking up Cat Cafe.
Yeah.
And then I pulled out the cities that didn't have them, right? So like there's already a demand for it, but there's no supply. And LA topped that list. So like I wanted to come here just for what I wanted to create,
Yeah.
but then I like data backing things up, but the
Yes.
data backed it up, and I was like,
Perfect.
okay, this works.
Excellent.
So that's the very long story of how Crumbs and Whiskers happened.
It's very
Wow,
cool.
that's amazing. So why Melrose? How did that data bring you to this city?
Yeah. There were two locations. So our clientele is a mix of like students, tourists, and travelers, and then locals. And
Okay.
so I kind of wanted to. LA is so spread out that like
Yeah.
I felt like no matter what I chose, like the students and the locals, like it would work out,
Sure.
like in the neighborhood. But like the tourists, so I kind of like focused in like West Hollywood, then like Santa Monica was another location that I was
Yeah.
like thinking of.
Yeah,
And
sounds
I-
like a perfect city for it. Yeah.
yeah, and I think like at the time I also was like starry-eyed about Melrose. I think like, you know, people hear about Melrose and
course.
etc. So I think there was like a combination of my romanticism of Melrose
Sure.
and then just kind of what made sense for our demographic.
Excellent. So you brought your business sense from the corporate world, I guess, and your background and your educational background into this process.
Yeah, I love animal welfare, but I see myself as a business person going into animal welfare rather than an animal welfare person going into business, you know?
Gotcha.
And I think that really does create a big difference in like how you build a business.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that's great. That's a really interesting story. It's kind of very similar to like in my situation where I was also looking for something different to do. I mean, I worked in also kind of corporate. I mean, I was working in post-production still for films and stuff like that. Sort of my
Fun.
career, what I wanted to do.
More fun version of
More
corporate.
but it was still, you're in your 9 to 5, you're in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
office all day, and it was like
Grind.
It was the grind, yeah. And then you have your 2 hours. LA. Once you start commuting for,
Hour each way. at
hour
least.
each way, hour and a half
Yeah.
each way. You're looking at 11-hour,
Yeah.
12
Work
plus
days.
hour day, yeah. So I kind of started with that same thing, and then actually my wife ended up taking me to a sanctuary, where I kind of had that moment of.
Man, sanctuaries have that
Epiphany.
effect.
They
on
do,
us.
right?
Yeah.
And this was like
Epiphany.
a very exotic. It was an exotic sanctuary. So I had like
Yeah.
lions, tigers,
Oh, wow.
big cats,
Bears,
all this.
oh my.
Yeah, exactly. So I left there, and I'm like, okay. So I know film. I know how to do all this stuff. Let's put it into let's educate the people about what's actually going on, and that they actually have sanctuaries in LA and behind our back door. Like, who would ever thought that you would have, lions and tigers, all these places in big cities like this?
Right.
So that kind of opened up the eyes. And so I can relate to your situation, which is, it's very inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, when I saw it, I actually saw you in the news not too long ago. You were, I guess, doing some promotion, and I saw it, and I was like, and I told Sam, I was like, Sam, we got to contact her. I'm like, she's doing amazing stuff. That's awesome. Like, how brilliant is that, of having, somebody to come and enjoy some little kitties and getting, some coffee
Little
and
brew.
just, it's just,
We love our coffee.
we do. Yeah,
We
exactly.
We love our
coffee.
kitties.
Yeah, we
And
love
we
our
love our cats.
And we
It
love our
works.
cats.
What-
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Put them together and boom.